How's it going, guys? My name is Falling Hurts, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about Redfall, not Elder Scrolls 6. It was the new open-world co-op shooter from Arkane Studios Austin, which is the studio that made Dishonored as well as Prey, while Arkane Lion is working on Deathloop, which is coming out later this year. And speaking of release dates, there is not one set yet for Redfall, but it is said to be coming summer 2022. And that will be on PC and Xbox Series X and S exclusively, but you can play it on Game Pass on day one. Now let's talk a little bit of what we're going to actually be able to expect from Redfall. It's not very apparent in the trailer completely, some of the gameplay elements, because it's just a cinematic teaser trailer, but it was pretty long actually, and it ended the E3 show, so they're putting some weight on this, and we've known that Harvey Smith, who is the director at Arkane Austin, has been working on something for a while, and the rumors and the code name for it was Omen, which we knew it was vampires, but we didn't know to what degree. Yeah, anyway, what you can expect from this game is that it's going to be a first-person shooter, which, of course, all of Arkane's games are first-person, but, someone who doesn't know Arkane watching that trailer, you might not think so. Of course, you're going to get some mystical or magical elements through each of the characters. They're going to have different abilities, and pretty much choosing them is like choosing your class. But with that being said, though, they're going to be in a completely realized world, the island of Redfall. You're on an island. I don't know why Arkane likes islands so much here lately. Deathloop is on an island, Black Reef. But now we've got Redfall. What's next? Bluegrass? Anyway, taking place in a well-realized world says a lot about the game, because Arkane has always knocked this out of the park. I'm curious to see how they'll actually handle a full open world setting. That being said, though, the switch to open world, I do think there is going to be a separate structure to the narrative of the game, because there will still, of course, be a narrative to follow, and we'll get into the exact plot details we've been given here in just a moment. But the idea, I think, is that it's going to be a little less linear than what maybe Arkane fans are used to. Do things a little bit more out of order, but we're going to see that a little bit firsthand with Deathloop first later this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about those different characters and potentially powers that each of them will carry going into these different class selections. But for now, let's talk a little bit about that plot finally. The quaint island town of Redfall, Massachusetts is under siege by a legion of vampires who have blocked out the sun and cut the island off from the outside world. Trapped with a handful of survivors against a diabolical enemy threatening to bleed the town dry, choose your hero from a diverse roster, grouping up with others to create the perfect team of vampire slayers. And while this all does sound a little Left 4 Dead, and there's definitely a multiplayer option to this game, it's fully co-op, you can have 4 players. You can also do the single player too. I feel like that's very important to note. There are a lot of people who like Arkane's games for the slow, methodical way they can go through their levels, and that's obviously going to be able to be done here as well. Although I do get a feeling that with the shooting ramped up, it might be a little faster paced in the combat department, but that's no big deal. The first of the characters that we do get to see in the teaser trailer is Devinder Crowsley, and he's a cryptozoologist and an aspiring inventor. His recent book tour landed him in Redfall just before it went dark. After years of struggling to create cutting-edge tech to hunt supernatural phenomena, everything is starting to finally click. In Redfall, monsters are real and his inventions work. As he puts them to use fighting vampires, he documents every step of the way. If he gets out of this alive, he'll have all the validation he needs. Next up is Layla Ellison, moved to Redfall from Wisconsin. She studied biomedical engineering at Redfall Technical University and volunteered for a medical trial at the ominous Avum Therapeutics Research Facility. That's a mouthful. Where apparently something went very wrong, leaving her with intense telekinetic powers, which we do get to see in the trailer. She makes an elevator at one point, among other things. She's flipping through a book, not touching it with her hands. She seems like a very interesting character, and I think she might be the most Dishonored-like character. I think she'll be very fun to play. Next up, Remy De La Rosa is a combat engineer, and a brilliant one at that. She lived her life on the front lines of conflict, using her brilliant mind to protect her loved ones and help those that needed around the world as part of an elite Navy rescue unit. With the help of her robot cohort, she's determined to help rescue Redfall survivors and eliminate any enemies that stand in her way. And with Remy, of course, we do get the summonable robot companion by the name of Bribone or Bribon or something like that. I'm not really entirely sure, but apparently in Spanish it roughly translates to rascal. Thank you to PC Gamer for that. I had to kind of look for the name. I couldn't find the robot's name in the article did mention that for me, so thanks. And then finally, we do have Jacob as the ex-military sharpshooter, and he is sent to Redfall just before the sun darkened as part of an elite private security force. Dark circumstances separated him from his platoon, forcing him down a rogue path. Now he stalks the streets of Redfall, neutralizing evil from the shadows with supernatural precision. Look for a mysterious, ragged raven circling overhead. You might not see him, but Jacob will be nearby. So to summarize, we have Devinder, who is going to be our crafter. You see him in the trailer using a modified crossbow or stake shooter of some kind. Next up is Layla, who is going to be the mage of the group, of course. And then there's Remy, who has her robot companion, and I'm sure she has other abilities as well. Not entirely sure to what extent each of these characters will have different abilities, but it is hinted that there will be different loadouts, so maybe different loadouts have different abilities, or at least different weapons, if nothing else. And then there is finally Jacob, who has a supernatural eye, which is going to help him with sharpshooting, as well as a raven that will maybe find enemies or indicate different things throughout the world. But enough about the good guys for a second. What's the big draw in these games? The bad guys. So let's talk a little bit about the vampires, which aren't really your normal vampires. They're actually created from a scientific experiment, which is a lot like what happened with Layla, maybe? So maybe she'll have some connection to the vampires, like what went well with her that went wrong with all of them. But one thing that does happen as the vampires progress in lifespan, they do also gain more powers. Kind of think of like The Last of Us with, like, you know, you've got the runner zombie, which turns into the clicker, which can turn into the bloaters or shamblers or anything at the higher level like that. But not all vampires, of course. You're going to have your normal vampires throughout the world. You're also going to be fighting cultists who believe they can worship the vampires, which I'm sure that won't ever work out for their favor regardless. As these big vampires grow larger, they're going to have more powerful abilities, and they're going to be much harder to take down. Now, unfortunately, there isn't too much else to know about Redfall on the surface, but I have done some extra digging, as well as, kept my eyes open on my Twitter feeds, and I have been able to find a little bit of extra information for you guys that might be of some interest, and that is who is working on the game. Well, Arkane Austin has, in 2020, roughly about 150 employees. I'm sure as, dev has ramped up, I'm sure they've hired more people. I'm sure they've lost a few. That's just how things go. However, don't worry. Arkane Studios is plenty equipped to do this game. If not for them, they are getting some help from id Software. Now, to what extent? It may be very minor, but it's always nice to have some Bethesda cross-company help. One of the animators for Doom and id Software is working on additional animations for Redfall. Now, this could just be one. This was removed, and this was brought to me by Timur222 or whatever his @name is on Twitter. I'll try to link it below if I can. This information, once it was brought to light, was since removed, so you never know what other ones were out there that no one did catch. But that is it on Redfall until we have any further information. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. Okay, I hate to go on any longer, but as of recording this, I do have some new Arkane information for you today, and that is that on July 8th, Sony will be having a state of play featuring Deathloop, which is currently console exclusive to their platform, although Arkane is now owned by Microsoft, so who knows what's going on with that. But we will be getting 9 minutes of gameplay, and if you're at all interested in that game, you're definitely going to want to check that out. God of War and Horizon are confirmed not to be there, but you're going to have a nice little showcase of Deathloop, as well as maybe some extra indie titles as well. And that is at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Alright guys, but for real, I am going to go ahead and call it for the video. I don't have really too much else to say. But with that state of play in mind, I am very excited for Deathloop, so if you're excited for that, maybe consider subscribing, and we'll talk about it soon.